Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Judge Jeanine Pirro, Harold Ford Jr., Jesse Waters, and Brian Kilmeade. It's 5 o'clock in New York City. This is The Five. Let's start with this. Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg facing intense backlash over his unprecedented indictment of former President Donald Trump. And some of that criticism is coming from unlikely places. Trump pleading not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records and tearing into Bragg in a primetime speech after his arrest.
I never thought anything like this could happen in America. Virtually everybody that has looked at this case, including rhinos and even hardcore Democrats, say there is no crime and that it should never have been brought. Everybody said this is not really an indictment. There's nothing here. My lawyers came to me and they said, there's nothing here. They're not even saying what you did.
A number of legal analysts questioning the foundations of the case against Trump, calling it weak and an overreach. They point out that the indictment is missing a key requirement. That would be the crime that would make it a felony. And some in the media also think the case will struggle to hold up.
What is the crime that prosecutors are alleging escalated this from a misdemeanor to a felony?
If I had to characterize it, it's disappointment.
If this is the only pebble that gets thrown at Donald Trump, it's a very small pebble.
Where's the beef as far as a felony goes? I talked to a lot of lawyers yesterday, and none of them Republicans, none of them Trump supporters, and all of them saying, this is a little thin.
In terms of a case that's being brought against a former president, it's a little underwhelming.
But DA Bragg is sticking to his guns, even as critics blast his role in reducing most other felonies in Manhattan.
These are felony crimes in New York State, no matter who you are. We cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct. We today uphold our solemn responsibility to ensure that everyone stands equal before the law. No amount of money and no amount of power changes that enduring American principle.
All right, Judge, as the news of yesterday settled in and you had today to think about it, what are your thoughts now?
You know, I woke up this morning and I said, maybe I missed something, but I didn't miss a thing. As I said yesterday, it was just a bunch of papers that were stapled together. The indictment is insufficient on its face. It is insufficient in terms of the statute of limitations. If you look at the first several counts, they are in February of 2017, which is beyond 5 years. I think it's the first 15 or 20 counts are outside the 5-year statute of limitations. We don't know what the crime is that they are complaining about, and we should. I mean, because an indictment is supposed to illustrate what it is that the defendant did. And if it's a federal crime, Bragg doesn't have jurisdiction to prosecute that. And if it's a state crime, which was the only thing that Bragg gave us insight into yesterday when he was asked, what is the underlying crime and why did you wait so long? He said, well, there's a New York election law. Well, I spent about 2 hours on the New York election law today. And it's clear to me that the New York election law only relates to campaigns for public office in the state of New York. He cannot try to bootstrap a New York state election law violation to raise this to a felony. State election laws do not apply to a presidential race. In addition to that, it's selective prosecution. It is duplicitous. There are 4 counts for 1 act. And you've got an intent that's in question. Did he intend to do it, that being Donald Trump, because he wanted to keep it from his wife and family, or for another reason? And the main witness is someone who's a perjurer per se. When he opens his mouth, you have to assume the guy is lying. And finally, this whole issue of the jurisdiction and the statute of limitations and the factual insufficiency, there's nothing in there that a defense attorney can prepare for. It's absurd. And let me just say one thing about Alvin Bragg, who made a fool of himself yesterday, as far as I'm concerned. He said, we cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct. Are you kidding? People are being stabbed, beaten, stabbed, brutalized, and murdered in New York City by career criminals who are being let out again and again. Felonies reduced to misdemeanors unless you're a Republican. This is a pathetic man who is not connected to reality. The only thing that I have a great concern about and that I'm wondering about is he not specifying the underlying crime? Because in the event that his case gets dismissed, because if he's any kind of lawyer at all, he knows this is an insufficient indictment. Is he giving Georgia and maybe Florida the ability to prosecute that crime that he thinks might apply to them as well without being barred by double jeopardy? Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that he could basically say, I'm not identifying it until I absolutely have to. In case the judge dismisses this, it'll give Georgia and Florida a chance to relitigate that issue that I haven't told you about.
Interesting. And so, Harold, how about Alvin Bragg bringing Republicans and Democrats together to agree on something?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you're back around.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you're here at the table, Harold.
It's been a while. So the judge raised this last point she raised yesterday, and I thought it was a very smart point, and we still don't have an answer to it. And I think that the fact that you continue to raise it is an important thing to do. Two, I reread it too, and I said yesterday, and I stand by it. I thought there would be a little more than there was. But what I did notice, and I think it's important to note, and we talked a little bit about it yesterday, it's clear that Alvin Bragg and his team believe that David Pecker, the American media CEO and the head of the National Enquirer, they own the National Enquirer, is as important a witness as Michael Cohen is. Number two, I get a sense that he believes the underlying crime is, the way he's going to prove it is that he believes that former President Trump intended to mislead the tax authorities in New York with the falsification of some of the business records. Now, we can argue over whether or not that is a big enough crime to indict a former president, but on the books, you're allowed to do that. I stand by what I said yesterday. I thought there would have been more here. What I wish would stop happening, and I understand those of us on television and certainly the president's lawyers are entitled to their opinions. I wish the threats and the attacks on the judge's family, Alvin Bragg personally, and Alvin Bragg's family, that has no place in this. And I would hope that on either side that we would stop that. I've seen it from one side against the judge's family, which I just don't quite understand. Our judicial system works. President Trump's lawyers will have an opportunity to file motions to dismiss this. And just based on what you've said, Judge, and I think some of the things that others have seen in the indictment, they may have some grounds to do it. And if the judge decides not to dismiss, which one could make an argument on that side as well, I would hope that those who are against this case and for the president will allow the legal process to unfold. And if the president is correct that he's not guilty, he will be found not guilty by a jury of his peers.
And, Jesse, flimsy charges are sure to backfire, right? So if you have a flimsy charge, it backfires. And then what are the consequences of that? You sow deeper divisions in a country that's already pretty torn apart.
Yeah, way to go, Alvin. The Democrats are convinced that Donald Trump's a criminal. Yeah. That he's guilty of murder, rape, espionage, you name it, he's guilty of it. And they were waiting for Alvin Bragg to tell them what Donald Trump was guilty of, and he came out and he couldn't do it. It was like being there during a will reading, and they found out they were being written out of the will. And they couldn't process it. So the word yesterday was disappointment. They were disappointed they didn't get the mug shot they wanted. They didn't get the violence in the streets that they wanted. They didn't get the handcuff shot that they wanted. They didn't get the cameras in the courtroom they wanted, and they didn't get an indictment worth a damn. The Democrats are driven crazy by the fact that Trump is innocent until proven guilty. So for the last 6 years, they've been trying to create a crime that he's guilty of. So Alvin Bragg, I'll give him credit, it was creative. He takes $130,000 and chops it up into 34 felony counts. And then he concocts this legal theory that has never been seen in the history of American jurisprudence. Am I using jurisprudence correctly?
Very well,
Thank
Jesse.
you. And no one can understand it. So the guy can't read a calendar also because all of the counts and the checks were written in 2017.
Yep.
So let me understand this, Alvin. You're saying he in 2017 was trying to influence the 2016 election?
I can do that math.
You cannot do that. So the case is falling apart. Alvin Bragg is a dumb man. The jury's tainted. The judge is a Democrat donor. And the charges aren't going to stick. Yep. And also, by the way he filed this thing, Trump paid more taxes.
I'm a Democrat, and I've said all along, you know, what he's innocent unless everyone is. So nor was I expecting this or
apology
wanting this.
accepted.
Over at National Review, Dan McLaughlin wrote this piece that I loved. It basically it said, I will take these charges seriously when the Democrats go back and and then he lists all of these things that have happened in the past that the Democrats said weren't a big deal.
I did not read that article.
Yep.
But I
like to school you
great.
on that kind of thing.
So, Judge, you spent 2 hours in election law. I did 2.5. So that was a do not disturb. A couple of things. I think it's hysterical that whether the timing was after the election or before the election, they think to kill these stories was to Donald Trump's benefit. How many times have you said to yourself, honey, get in the car, but before we decide who we're going to vote for, get the Inquirer, and let's find out what's in there, and then I'll decide. My goodness, if it's not the Inquirer, I just don't know who to vote for. So it was unbelievable to flip around at all the channels last night and see people just look at this case, and no one could get any traction. Yeah. I think it diminishes all the other cases, and I am somewhat, in all seriousness, sad, because in every one of the other cases that are up there, more serious, less serious, Trump has got a point and the other side has a point.
Right.
The election, Georgia, Mar-a-Lago, everybody's got a point. And you know how long it takes for these cases to mature? Years. So for the next 3 years, we're literally going to be talking more about the cases than the border, than Ukraine, than the $4.75 gas that's coming our way this summer. So the things that actually help our country that need to be addressed, we're going to be focusing on these cases. And I think it's actually going to overwhelm the primaries. I'm very curious to see if somebody's got a strategy to win in the Republican Party and beat Donald Trump, knowing he's going to be taking all the news cycles away from people.
Can I say one more? This is just something I want to throw out. The judge said he wants to move as expeditiously as possible. How do you set a motion date December 4th? Right. This is April, May, June, July, August, September. I mean, I don't have enough fingers for that. They're trying to push it toward, you know, the primary.
Yeah.
Right.
New Hampshire and Iowa.
And you know how expensive it is to bring Donald Trump in? $200 million.
And then
why not zoom him in? That's another issue.
One point that hasn't been made that I would make is the example it sets around the world. It's horrendous.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.